So I forgot to mention the most important lady in the room, and that was Naomi. Because Naomi was going to finish. AFAF has been the driving force around the society since it was formed in 2005, and she continued to drive it forward. I've heard it described in various ways as something not to be tractable with, an irresistible force. But what it really means is it's very determined and very absolutely committed to the cause of women and the cause of the Egyptian society and the cause of trying to promote better relations in Northern Ireland between Muslims and what we call Christians. So, well done.
Thank you.
Well done. And now, it's a particular pleasure for me to introduce a lady who is the Deputy Leader of the Alliance Party, the past Mayor of Belfast, and Member of Parliament for East Belfast, Naomi.
Your Excellency, members of the Assembly, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here with you this evening so that we can celebrate International Women's Day here in Stormont. I want to say a particular thank you to the Egyptian Society for organising this event here tonight, which is not just about celebrating women, but also about celebrating the cultural diversity that we now have in Northern Ireland, and that's a hugely positive thing, and I want to talk about that a little bit later. I was asked if I could reflect on the impact that women have in terms of the developments that we've made over the years, and also in the things we still need to achieve for women in this country, but also reflect a little bit on the things that we can do as women in terms of supporting development in other countries too on the international front, and that's what I want to do in my remarks. Today we have much to celebrate as a society, as women. We have made many great strides forward, and it's something I think which we should be very proud of, but I think also feel very privileged about, because our position in society is not shared by many others in many other places in the world. We have access to voting rights. We have equality legislation which protects and ensures that we're treated as equal citizens under the law. We have rights to control our own finances. We have rights to own property. They all sound very basic things, but actually in many countries there are things that women can't do. And those are hugely important things that we have, and we should value those. At the general election in May 2010, when I was elected, there were 143 women, 22% of the total elected to members of Parliament. That's the highest number ever. 1 in 5 MPs in Westminster are now female. We've come a long way since the introduction of women's suffrage in 1918 and the equalisation of the voting age in 1928. Progress for women in public life and in the boardrooms of our country has still been very slow, and so there is no room for complacency. We need to be constantly pressing for more women to engage in every area of our society, in our community and voluntary sector, in our political life, and also in our business community, so that we can have a strong and dynamic economy. We also need to tackle ongoing discrimination against, abuse of and violence against women, which sadly today is still a feature in our community, and it's something I think which we have to be very conscious of. On Monday this week in Parliament, there will be unveiling the portrait of Emily Pankhurst, and only a year ago, to celebrate International Women's Day, her granddaughter, Helen Pankhurst, along with other women who were concerned about the rights of women, led protests in Parliament to mark the work that the suffragette movement had done, but also to highlight their concerns about the precarious state of the rights of women in our society, which risk being undermined by changes in employment and welfare law, and also wanted to seek a refocus in government on the importance of putting an emphasis on equality and respect. It is true that while the laws we have in these islands protect women against direct discrimination, there are still barriers, some of them cultural and some of them of confidence, which have to be overcome if women are going to be able to fulfil their full potential in leadership roles in our community. A government inquiry into the dominance of UK boardrooms last year recommended that the FTSE, the FTSE 100 companies, should aim for a minimum of 25% female board representation by 2015. Given that women make up over half the population, that's a fairly low target, but yet it's one that people think will be difficult to achieve. The report highlighted that whilst over the past 25 years the number of women in full-time employment has increased by more than a third, and there have been many steps towards gender equality in the workplace with flexible working and the Equal Pay Act, there is still a long way to go. Women in the workplace in the UK make up the largest proportion of those in poorly paid part-time employment, and their ability to develop their careers and to make their full contribution to society is often impeded by the lack of affordable childcare. They're also the group most likely in society to suffer from economic and social exclusion. The report demonstrated even for those in very well-paid professional roles, well-educated women, their ability to contribute at the most senior level still appears to be restricted, whether it's by boardroom culture, a lack of recognition, or indeed their own lack of confidence in putting themselves forward when those roles become available. 18 FTSE 100 companies had no female directors at all, and nearly half of all the FTSE 250 companies had not a single woman in their boardroom. So there's still a lot of work for us to do. It is, of course, an issue of equal opportunities, but it's also about improving business performance. The evidence shows that diversity in the boardroom is better for business, that it delivers financial outperformance and stock market growth. There is no silver bullet to address those issues, but there are things which I believe that each of us can make a little contribution towards in terms of changing the picture and delivering some equality. I think what we need to do first is to encourage more women to see themselves in those roles, and secondly, to promote the opportunities that exist in non-traditional sectors such as policing, politics, engineering. We need to give them encouragement and confidence and critically practical support so that those women with an interest can really get involved. By increasing the number of women in those sectors, and crucially in positions of leadership and influence, then we can start to change the culture of organisations and ensure that women actually want to stay in those businesses once they've reached a level of success. Providing our young women in particular with opportunities to test themselves and grow in confidence is hugely important in terms of breaking down barriers. Those of us who have positions of leadership in our chosen field have a particular responsibility, I believe, to encourage other women to get involved. Before politics, I was an engineer, and so having worked as I have in usually quite male-dominated, although predominantly male environments, whether they're male-dominated, I think depends a lot on the men that we work with. But for me, it was very important to volunteer with women into science and engineering in schools, and I continue to do that as an elected politician in terms of encouraging women to get involved in politics, because I want to see an elected cohort of representatives here in this place in the Assembly, in our local councils and in Westminster that represents the general population. I don't really see myself just as a female politician. I'm first and foremost a politician, and I just happen to be female. My principal motivation when I got involved in politics wasn't to address the gender imbalance. It was to make a difference in the community that I lived in. It was to make it a safer and more stable one, to remove the barriers that exist between communities in Northern Ireland and to try to build a more shared and stable future for us all. I believe that it's that desire to effect change, improve the community around them and have a rewarding career which is going to motivate other women to get involved. So if we want to see more women, we shouldn't approach them only as women, but we should be appealing to them as members of the community who want to see a change for the better, and then give them the skills and the opportunities to make a difference in that process. It's in that role and the work that I did around good relations in Belfast and my time as Lord Mayor that I really became involved with the Egyptian Society. And during my year as Lord Mayor, I have to say that the enthusiasm of the Egyptian Society and their membership added huge colour and huge depth to the year that I spent in the city. I took as my theme Belfast without barriers, and it was hugely encouraging to me to see lots of people from diverse backgrounds to come together in Belfast and celebrate diversity, not as a point of difference or weakness, but as something to be cherished and something to be embraced and something to be celebrated positively in the city. The work that is done by the Egyptian Society, and having been fully engaged in that work, is not just about integrating the Egyptian community and indeed the wider Arab community into Northern Ireland society, but it has also been hugely important in building bridges with other ethnic minority communities in Northern Ireland and creating opportunities for people from very diverse backgrounds, different cultures, different religions, to come together at events like this and learn to experience together what it is to be human in this world and to be able to share that experience in a positive way. And I want to pay tribute to the Egyptian Society, and I have to say particularly on International Women's Day, I want to pay tribute to Afa Fali for her enthusiasm and for her relentlessness in pursuing events like this to ensure that she gets the best possible turnout and creates a real sense of place. And it's a hugely exciting thing to be invited along. And I have the honour of being an honorary member of the Egyptian Society, an honour that was bestowed on me by Afa Fali, and one that I'm very pleased to have been able to accept. And I would want to encourage not just the Egyptian Society, but many of the other people who are here tonight who represent different cultures and backgrounds to continue with that work. Because even at a difficult time in Northern Ireland's history, I think that the work that those who come to Northern Ireland through choice, the contribution that they make to society, and the model that they show for integration is a hugely important lesson, I think, for those of us who live in Northern Ireland to take away with us. So thank you for all the work that you do. If we're going to encourage more women to do that, we have to also look at the positive things that we can achieve. We have to look at the good. It would be easy to focus on the negatives and the barriers, but we also have to talk about the very positive things that we can do and encourage other women to feel that they can get involved too. We have a responsibility to ourselves to believe that we can make a difference and to make the most of the opportunities that we have. We have a responsibility to the other women around us to encourage them and to engage in leading and shaping their community, and also to challenge that discrimination and inequality and those barriers wherever they may find them. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, I think for me, we in this country, despite all the challenges we still face, have a huge responsibility to those in our world who do not have the advantages, the freedoms or the rights which we so often take for granted. Whether it is about the role of women in building peace in conflict-torn countries, the rights of smallholder farmers, many of whom are female in developing countries, and whose economic independence relies on legal protection around land ownership and market access, whether it is protecting women from human trafficking, or whether it is supporting things like the Send My Sister to School campaign and the improvement in water and clean water and sanitation in the developing world. I believe that the work that those of us who are elected can do in Parliament, highlighting those issues, putting pressure on government to prioritise them in their work in international development and in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office is really important. But it wouldn't be possible without the support, the input and the advice of the many charities, voluntary organisations and other volunteers who relentlessly fundraise and campaign and research on those issues, and I'm very grateful for that. If we want to move forward together on International Women's Day, then as women I think we have to work both locally and globally, ensuring that the situation of all women is improved. Not out of selfish interest, but because we know that in doing so we increase peace, stability, food security in some of the most difficult regions of the world, not just for women, but for men. We increase the talent, the creativity, dynamism of our industry and government, creating economic benefit, not just for women, but for men. And we increase the number of women who will be able to make positive contributions to shaping our society and other societies for future generations, which will benefit male and female alike. I'm delighted to be able to celebrate International Women's Day with women who have that goal in mind. And so I want to encourage all of you in the room, male or female, to make International Women's Day an opportunity to reflect on what we've achieved, to see the challenges ahead, and to redouble our efforts to ensure that equality for women and access to positions of power and authority are something that we can actually do to realise those aspirations, not just for women, but also for men. Thank you.